Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to another episode of Bankroll Your Brilliance Thursdays. I'm Nicole Roberts Jones, the Bankroll Your Brilliance expert. Always excited to have you here with me. So, this episode I'm pre recording because I'm at a conference, but I want you to know even when I'm not able to be here live, I will always make sure I pour into you. Our conversation for this week is dominate in your lane. The three keys to dominate in it. And I wonder if you realize that God created you with an arena that He created for you to dwell in, for you to dominate in. So before I get started, a couple things. Come on in, tell me hello, tell me name and where you're from. Even though I am not here live, I still will come and read every single comment. That's number one. Number two, if I say anything that resonates with you, I want you to post it. I also want to ask you to share it. And I'm not asking you to share it because I'm trying to see, get more likes or get more people to follow me. I'm asking you to share this content because someone in your tribe, someone in your family, someone that's following you on social media may also need this insight. So, as you know, every week as I come to you for Bankroll Your Brilliance Thursdays, I speak from three topic areas. Number one, what is your brilliance? Number two, what is the value tied to it? And number three, how do you create multiple streams of income from it? So today I'm talking from the first section. What is your brilliance? What is your purpose? What is the one thing God has created you to do in this world? You know, the thing I think is so interesting about purpose is the topic that is so over talked about, but so misunderstood. So today, as I talk to you about how you dominate in your lane, I want you to know I'm talking all about purpose. And anytime I talk about purpose, I use the word brilliance. And here's the reason why. Matthew 5:16 says, let your light so shine among men and women that they may see your good works and glorify your Father in heaven. So when I'm talking about brilliance, I want your purpose to shine so bright that God gets the glory, that people see the very thing God created you to do or be in this world. And I share this with you passionately based on my own journey. So those of you that are here for the first time, by the way, tell me you're here for your first time. But I'm going to give you context to why I share this. And by the way, this is a two-part series. I have even more than this first section. So I've been doing this as of 2021. I've been doing this 28 years. That means this year, at the end of this year, to be year 29. I'm like, how old am I? So I started in this work back in 1993 when I had the career I have dreamed of since I was 7 years old. So back then I worked in the entertainment industry. At the time I worked for Viacom's largest cable network. We had an outreach to over 89 million homes on a weekly basis. And then from there, I worked in a casting position on the number one TV show on Fox. And then from there, I worked with the entertainment group, and what we produced generated over $12.6 billion a year. So I share that with you because I want you to realize how big I was playing. And listen, I loved every minute of it. I was bumping elbows with people you've seen on TV and people you've watched on films. So I was living the dream. But can I tell you, somewhere along the way, it became my nightmare. And I'm saying that because I started to feel like something was missing. And that tormented me because, again, this is the job I had dreamed of since I was 7 years old. How could something feel like it was missing? How could I feel like something is off? And yet that's how I felt. And every time I tried to talk to one of my friends about it, they kept saying, are you crazy? Do you realize the red carpet event we went to? Do you realize the premiere we went to? So in the middle of me feeling dazed and confused, one of my good girlfriends invited me to volunteer with her at a program at our church one Friday night. As I started working with young people that night, something in my soul lit up and I realized, oh my God, this is it. But I didn't know how I was going to get paid to do this thing because, again, this was 1993. There was no such thing as a church. No such thing as a coach. No such thing as a church. There was no such thing as a coach. But for the first time in my life, my soul was alive. See, I realized now what was happening is my purpose was calling. You get to a certain level in your life, in your business, where you are, it's just no longer big enough for your gift. So it wasn't that I wasn't already operating in my purpose, but I fully didn't understand it. I wasn't standing in the full power of it, let alone dominating in it. So in the next few minutes, I'm going to walk you through what I learned in that moment and literally what I now call my DFM formula. So listen, God began to show me context to this journey along the way, and he took me to Genesis 1:28, which says, be fruitful and multiply, have dominion. So today I'm going to walk you through dominion, but because I can't give it all to you in the time we have, I'm going to give you a book, right? So I'm going to walk through the first step today, which is the most important one. And then our part two, next week, I'll walk through the other two steps to the DFM formula, dominion, fruit, multiply, even though I'm doing it backwards in the Bible verse. So you can get the book there, dfmformula.com, because I can only go through so much in our time together, all right? So grab a pen. I'm going to walk you through what dominion is. Now listen, and you're going to see me look down in my notes too. So dominion means supreme authority, absolute ownership. If you're going to dominate in the arena that God created you to dwell in, you've got to own it. First of all, you got to know it, and then you got to own it. So we look at dominion. You know, the thing that's interesting is in Genesis 2:9, I believe it's in 2:9, it talks about the fact that God created a garden and then put Adam in it. So even, by the way, Genesis 1:28, God was talking to Adam. You know, he was talking about creating and what he wanted the man to do to be fruitful, multiply, and have dominion. And even beyond that, he talked about the fact that he created a garden and put Adam in it. I want you to really understand this. When you were born to this world, God created you as an answer in a specific arena. So you have gifts and talents that are meant to solve a very specific problem for a very specific group of people. The problem is, do you know who that is? Let alone, do you know what it is? So here are the 3 steps that makes you dominate in the lane that God created you to dwell in. You ready? Step number 1 is you got to be clear on what your purpose is. So listen, I use something called a brilliance framework. Now, I told you what brilliance means a few minutes ago for me, right? So the first 2 steps of the brilliance framework is really what defines your purpose, your brilliance. So step number 1 is, what do you love? Like, what can you do hour upon hour and never, ever ask a dime for it because you love it so much? And then the second is, what are you passionate about? Excuse me, what are you proficient in? I just said that. What are you passionate about and what are you proficient in? My mind is working faster than I'm talking. What are you passionate about and what are you proficient in? So you got to love it and then you got to be good at it. You can't be good at it and hate it, and you can't love it and not be good at it, because then who will want to hire you and who will want to pay you to do it? And God would not give you purpose that you hate, and he wouldn't give you a great skill that's not in alignment with your purpose that you wouldn't love. You get that? So when I use myself for an example, when I had that moment at that church that night, so I started looking at what I could see. And so one of the things I love to do is shop. So I overlooked the fact that what I was doing was coaching those young women that night. I started thinking of the things that I could see. Maybe I'm meant to be a stylist. So I went about learning all things fashion. I volunteered at a movie. I volunteered on a movie in the wardrobe department. Can I tell you, I hated every minute of it? Hated it. And I thought, I can't do this for a profession, because then I realized I only really like shopping for me. I don't even like shopping for Christmas gifts for anybody else. I like to shop for me. So that means my passion about proficiency was off. Another example I always love to use around this is Michelle Obama in her book Becoming. She talks about the fact that she matriculated through this whole legal profession and she got to a place where she hated it. And so I shared that same thing in another workshop before, and a woman said, well, do you think that it was a waste for her to go to law school? No, it wasn't. Because the Bible verse says all things work together for the good, not some things. But what you got to understand is what's next for you. So your purpose goes through what I call a matriculation system. What God does is use everything to grow your purpose. So one, you got to be clear on where your passion, your proficiency correlate. And understand how that is, number 2, how that is a answer to a problem. So first is passion, second is proficiency, third is problem. What problem does it solve and for who? I see so many people who start businesses or who think they're discovering their purpose because they see somebody else doing something. They're like, oh, I could do that. Can and should is 2 different things, by the way. I can do that. Okay, I'm going to start a business doing that. I think that's God speaking to me. No, it's not. When you do things based on what you think you can do, instead of being clear and uncompromising and sitting and watching who you be. So if I go back to number 1, to your purpose, your passion, your proficiency, listen. When I was 3 years old, there's a picture of me in one of my books at 3. And every single picture, by the way, my husband tried to do this roast for my 40th birthday, and he and my mom had a funny time trying to find pictures of me, because every picture of me when I was little, I was talking. What do I do for a living? I talk. No coincidence, by the way. Number 2 is that in that picture at 3, I have a baby carriage I'm pushing. But there's no baby in that baby carriage. There are books and papers, because I've always been a natural producer. See, God leaves clues to what you're purposed to do. So when I worked in entertainment, I worked in casting and production because my gift is I can see the role that's right for you in your business and produce your gift in order to make multiple streams of income from it. Good, right? But I was that way at 3. I was that way at 7, playing with my friends, telling people what role they should play when we play Batman and Robin. I was that way in Hollywood, and I'm that way in my business now. Because the seed God planted in you at birth, your DNA, gives clues to who you already are. And what happens for many of us is you can't see the label from inside the jar. Meaning you can't see the brand called you because you're you on autopilot every day. So then how do you define who you are and what you do when you do you every day? So you've got to take time to get clear on who you be. What's the seed? Who have you always been? And that bumps up against your passion and your proficiency. So then number 2, know that it is the answer to someone's problem. See, God put you down here on purpose, with purpose, as the answer to a problem. So you've got to understand you're not everybody's answer, but you are somebody's answer. Just like some of us love iPhones, some of us like smartphones. Some of us like BET, some of us like TV1. Some of us can't stand BET, right? So understand that you have a natural propensity for some things. And so that again bumps up against your passion, your proficiency. That is the answer to somebody's problem. I need you to get that. And so then once you're clear on what you're the answer to and for who, and that's a whole workshop in and of itself. Again, I want to make sure you get the DFM Formula book. I go into it in much more detail, dfmformulabook.com. I want you to get that the third step is the most critical. But before I walk you through that third step, I have another gift for you. And the reason I'm giving you all these gifts is this. It's one thing for me to talk to you about it and walk you through the steps, but I really want you to be able to activate it. So I'm going to invite you to a special week that I'm doing starting next week. So hold tight, listen in, and I'll be back for step number 3. Is 2022 the year you start or grow your purpose-focused business alongside your 9-to-5? Is 2022 your year of more? Would you get the motivation and inspiration you need by hearing from other successful people who have said yes and gone after their next level? Hi, I'm Nicole Roberts-Jones, and I'm inviting you to join me for Power in Your Pivot Week. Join us to hear from 8 phenomenally successful people, plus me, to give you insight, to help you show up powerfully and pivot into your next level. Listen, we're not coming for who you already are, but for whom you have not yet become. Only if 2022 is your year of more. Only if 2022 is your year of increase. Then join us as we support you and hold the space for you to go and get it. Starting on Monday, February 7th, and each night that week, Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. EST. Join us by registering at powerinyourpivot.com. Yay. So again, I look forward to you joining us. Let me tell you why I am holding Power in Your Pivot Week. Because what happens to many of us is we are already successful when God then calls us into our next. I call that purpose matriculation. And many of our experts are going to share their own journey of how they were already doing some powerful things and God called them to shift into what was next for them. And so I call it purpose matriculation because what happens is in this thing called life is just like when we started school. So when we started school, we knew we were starting in kindergarten, and then you went to elementary, and then junior high, and then high school, and then some of us went on to college, and then graduate school, and on and on and on and on. Well, your purpose matriculates the same way. The difference is, in this thing called life, God does not tell you where you're going to next. That's where faith steps in. See, faith is a substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. So God is going to always call you to more. That more is your next level. That more goes after you abundantly above all you could ask or think. That more is outside of your comfort zone. What you have to understand is your comfort and your conviction can never coexist. And so if that's the case, it's going to take you to go outside of your comfort to do the third step. Now, before I give you the third step, let me remind you of the first 2 to dominate in your lane. Number 1, you got to get clear on your purpose. Again, that's where your passion and your proficiency correlate. The second step is you got to be clear on who it is the answer to. You're not everybody's answer. You're somebody's answer. So what is the problem that God created you to be the solution to? And then third, you've got to cultivate it. One of the examples I love to use around this whole cultivation conversation, I have two examples. The first one is Miss Beyonce. I'm gonna give you a practical, I'm gonna give you a Bible example because that's who I be, right? So Beyonce, now we all have watched Beyonce matriculate in her own career, but I want you to get this. So when she first started Destiny's Child, there were four people in that group and then two left. First of all, how many groups make it through all the rumors and innuendo that went on when the two left? So then they found two more to come back and replace them. And then when those two came, one left. See, first, Beyonce was clear and determined, no matter what, I'm not going to give up on the thing I know I was purposed to do. Number one. Number two, when that Destiny's Child, the final three, were doing well, growing, winning awards, I believe Beyonce got this inkling, this purpose matriculation happening inside of her, the same thing that was happening to me in entertainment, that was calling her to her next level, which meant going solo. Now, that scared Beyonce. So, in order for her to be able to go solo, she had to create this alter ego to stand on stage alone. Keep in mind, for at least 10 years, she had been standing on stage, 15 even maybe, with two, sometimes three other women next to her. To go solo, she'd have to go out there alone. So, in order for her to do it, she conjured up this alter ego called Sasha Fierce. And I remember watching her one day, and I would say hating on her a little bit, but I was having a full on jealous moment. And God said to me, well, you have fierce in you too. I do, Lord. But I realized in that moment, as each of us come to a place where we've got to be willing to do what it takes to go after our next level, to grow our gift, to serve more people and do more good in the world. The second example I want to give to you is David. Now, I'm going to do long story short on David. David and Goliath, we've heard the story, but do you realize that David, he is the youngest of seven. He has seven other brothers, so it's 8 boys in his family. He's the youngest. I think that's 8 is what I should have said, but anyway. So listen, when God said that the current king was not to be a king, and then Samuel said, well, who should be king then, Lord? Who should I anoint and appoint to be the next king? God sent him to Jesse's house. Jesse is David's father. He said one of Jesse's sons is to be appointed and anointed to be king. So Jesse brings every single son before Samuel, and he's like, no, not him. No, not him. Not him. And then when he brings the seventh son and says it's not him, he said, but you have another son. Where is he? And Jesse said, oh, he's out in the field tending to the sheep. Can you bring him in? First of all, to bring him in, he must have smelled like nobody's business. Imagine being out in the hot sun all day long watching sheep. He brings him in, and Samuel says, that's him. Now, guess what? David did become king. He went right back into the field. Why? Because God was getting ready to use that to develop him. Now, I want you to get this. David spent years tending to sheep. And see, when you're tending to sheep, that means you're fighting lions. That means you're fighting wolves. So when David and Goliath came, and Goliath was terrorizing the town, and nobody would fight him. The army wouldn't fight him. The Marines wouldn't fight him. The Navy wouldn't fight him. And David said, oh, I'll fight him. Little 12-year-old, little bitty David said, I'll fight the rock times 10. See, what David realized when he said, and all of this is from the Bible, he said, listen, I've been in the field fighting lions and wolves. I can fight this giant because the Lord will be with me. See, David was clear that God had prepared him for such a time as this. So who you've been, the schooling you've had, the experiences that you've been through, the knowledge you've gained, your life experiences have prepared you for a place that only you are created to dwell in. That is where you dominate. But you've got to be clear on what your purpose is, who's it for, and how it's the answer to a group of people. And I'll talk to you about profit next week. But before you can even get to profit, before you can even make a dime, I need you to understand that you've got to be clear on why you are here. So take the time, read through the DFM formula book that I'm gifting you. Take the time and read through the book so that you can get clear on the answer you were born to be in this world. Join me next week for Power in Your Pivot Week. And put that on the screen as well. Because as you listen to each of the experts, you're going to hear how they too got to a place where their purpose was being asked, being some pushed, some being forced to make a pivot. See, God's gonna let you choose. He gives us free will. He doesn't make us do anything. The question is, will you do the work to cultivate the gift in you? Will you get clear on what it is and stop wandering around? And some of you guys know what it is, but it's scary. You heard me tell David's story. You think he wasn't scared to go in front of that giant? See, but he was more committed to the people that needed him than his own fear. So you've got to get committed. You've got to get clear and committed to push past fear, to grow into your next level, and to be all that God has called you to be. So that's our conversation for week 1. I have so much more to pour into you next week. So make sure you join me. Mark your calendar. We're walking through the DFM formula. Today I did D because you have dominion. There's an arena that you should have absolute ownership in. You don't need to feel guilty for having ambition because you want to own who you be. You don't need to feel guilty because you want to own the way that God created you. You don't need to feel guilty because you have this natural propensity for certain things you're good at, certain things you're not so good at. Listen, I remember I used to get in trouble every day when I was little for talking too much. Of course, I feel bad about the things I'm getting in trouble, but it's benefited me now. People used to call me bossy. Well, yeah, I kind of am bossy. It's called being a coach. I can go on and on about who I've always been. And I overlooked it for years until I got clear and uncompromising on the one thing God created me to be and do in this world. And that's the same thing I want for you. So I look forward to continuing the conversation next week. Don't forget, 12 p.m. EST every Thursday, I'm here with you. And so we'll continue part 2 as we talk multiply, how God created you to multiply and create multiple streams of income. Oh, you don't want to miss it. I'll see you next Thursday, 12 p.m. EST. By the way, again, if you got any value, please share below and then click the link below and share with your tribe because you never know who else will benefit from this conversation. All right. So with that, I'll be back next week for part 2. Have a phenomenal rest of your week, y'all. Bye.